Yeah, welcome to the Aro Benaiah Show, where we celebrate hands-on builders, creators, and entrepreneurs who turn challenge into purpose. But today I'm honored to sit with someone who has lived many lives in one screenwriter, PR builder, stand-up comedian, agency founder, and now a holistic personal brand therapist, helping people know themselves before they brand themselves. Hersh Rephun, it's really a pleasure having you on the show.
It's great to be with you, Aro. Thank you so much for having me on.
So, Hatch, what was it like growing up?
Well, I grew up in Miami Beach in Florida, and it was really, I always felt like I lived in a special place. I would see big cities like New York and LA and things on TV and in movies, and I thought those were exciting, but it was always everywhere that I saw, like, a lot of shows about Chicago, New York, it was cold. So it was snow, it was all this stuff, and Florida was warm and sunny. And so I had, I think, a warm and sunny kind of feeling, which is funny because now I live in Iowa where it's freezing cold, but that's where my wife's from. But I live in a freezing cold, snowy environment at this time of year. But I was very, very fortunate to have parents who were encouraging me to be creative. And whether I was writing or, being funny and doing all these things, they were supportive of it. But it was also the idea of being in the entertainment business was a little scary because it's a very challenging business to make money in, acting and stand-up comedy. So I went to New York and I went to School of Visual Arts, which is a very well known kind of art school for everything: animation, filmmaking, advertising. And I thought I was going to be a screenwriter, which I did some of it, but I also got introduced to the advertising industry. And that's where I really kind of took off in working with people who made commercials. That seemed to be an area that I really just fit in.
Amazing. So you wrote original stories instead of doing books reports. How did that earlier rebellion translate into your screenwriting career?
Yeah. So what happened with school was that they would want you to write book reports and they would assign books. So instead of reading these Hardy Boy books, which were the young detectives, these two young boys that were detectives, instead of reading them, I would just scan through them and look at the character names and the locations, and I would write a report that was essentially what I had made up. And the teacher didn't even realize it until about 3 or 4 of these reports, and she realized I was making these up, and she wrote a note, "No more Hardy Boy books," no more. But as I got older and I was really becoming infatuated with movies, I started writing screenplays and eventually got hired to write a few little movies.
Amazing. So you work in film, PRO, comedy, and marketing. How did each career phase shaping your understanding of people and branding?
Yeah, that's a great question because in every situation I had to understand people because in the advertising industry I was working with directors of TV commercials, and my appreciation of comedy, of filmmaking, of screenwriting really made me a very different kind of I was doing their PR, but it made me a very different kind of publicist because I wasn't just promoting them, I was writing about them and capturing their voice. And then when you're writing screenplays, you're making up voices or capturing voices for the characters. And when I was doing stand up comedy, I was doing characters. So I'm making up voices for them and I'm coming up with my own voice. So if you think about it, everything I've done in my career has been about voice. It's just been a different way. If you're
Yeah,
writing ads for a brand, you're writing in the ad and in the product voice. So it's always been about voice.
amazing. So at what point did you realize that even though you were successful, you weren't personally fulfilled?
That I wasn't fulfilled personally. Felt all along. What's funny is I think I was Sometimes you can have a feeling that you're not fulfilled personally, and you
Yeah,
think you know why. You think you know why. And I thought I knew why. I thought it was because I was doing the advertising and the PR and not stand-up comedy, which I had really wanted to continue doing, but wasn't making enough money to do it. And I had a family and children. So when I was in my early 40s, I started doing more stand-up in LA where I was living, and I just took the time to really become good at it, really give myself a shot at it, and what I realized was I loved it, but that wasn't what was missing. That wasn't what was missing. What was missing was working one-on-one with people on their stories. I had started working with sneaker brands and fitness brands and beverage brands. I was working with products, and I wanted to be working with people on
people.
their message. And that's when I started doing the personal branding and what I called for a while kind of brand therapy, because it was really about having deep conversations with people. You're not going to have a deep conversation about Nike, right? You're not going to have a
Yeah,
deep
yeah,
conversation about Folgers coffee, but you're going to have a deep conversation with somebody about
yeah.
their business, you know?
Amazing. The fact that the lost part was the fact that you want to connect with people rather than products. You want to know what they do and how to actually monetize it through. And this is really, really amazing. So your stand-up comedy years sound adventurous. What did those nights on stage teach you about connecting with your audience?
Well, the first thing I think is to no, is to read the room. When you're a comedian and you're standing in the back of the room and you're waiting to go on, you look at the faces of the audience, you see what they're laughing at. Maybe there's something that happened where everybody's feeling a little low or a little down. Maybe they're feeling excited because something good is going on. But something in the room, the comedian who's on before you is picking up on that and working with it. And the whole trick, I think, to stand-up comedy is to have the audience feel connected to you. And the easiest way to do that is to experience what they're experiencing. So, my first time doing stand-up comedy, I didn't pay any attention to the audience. I was too nervous. I was in my own head. I was standing off to the side. It actually was a situation where Eddie Murphy had just done a drop in. He came in right before I was about to go on. And so it was like crazy there. Everybody was going crazy. Eddie Murphy's here and all of this. And he did his thing. I didn't even watch his set because I was too nervous. But what I realized later was I had to experience what they were listening to in order to know how to deal with them. So I can come out and really connect. And I think the other thing is to be honest with them, because the audience really wants honesty. They don't want like acting. That's not what stand-up comedy is.
Wow, amazing, amazing. So many people get stuck in their career that they are good at, but don't love it. So how did you find the courage to walk away from something that you were good at? That I was working externally. How do you actually more like develop the courage to walk away from something that was working externally?
Yeah, and I think that you know you you don't have to do what you love, in the sense that if I loved gardening as an activity, I wouldn't have to leave my career to be a gardener. I would just have to make time for gardening. And I think what I didn't what gave me a lot of conviction was that I took the things I was good at and analyzed them and said, okay, how would I be most happy using these talents? And if I had stayed doing what I was doing, which a lot of it was copywriting, right now with AI and everything else, I would be worried about my career and what am I going to do? But I actually took all the things that I brought to copywriting and I moved it over to brand and strategy for people, for their business, for their passions, for their missions. And now I'm doing way more strategy than I am
Yeah.
writing. but the strategy informs the communication. But I think getting away from what I thought I was, what I was good at, which I was good at, was writing commercials. But it was like, okay, that was just a way I was using my skills. So we have to look at our skills and say, are we using them in a way that makes us happy?
Wow, amazing. Thanks a whole lot for that clarity. I think this just speaks volumes to you might have something you get to love, but it might not necessarily be your work, but definitely you can make out time for what you love, which at the end of the day will actually more like give a perfect balance to it. And yours is the fact that same copywriting, but in terms of now you're actually more like saying it out, being that you counsel people, you listen to their stories,
Yeah.
and you're able to provide solutions to everything owing to how you yourself have actually more like went through the journey. And this is really, really amazing. Yeah. So COVID actually more like shut down your business overnight. What was the moment you realized it wasn't just about business, it wasn't just business problem, but not a turning point?
Yeah. Well, my business partner and I, at the time, we had this agency where we did a lot of sneaker marketing. We had just come back from traveling to sign new clients, and then COVID hit. And so naturally, as you point out, the first thing you think is, oh man, our business is shutting down. But then it was like, well, now that we don't have that business, we have two choices. We either have to, when things start getting better, we can go out again and try to get the business again, get it going, or we can do different things that really excite us more. And it wasn't that I didn't need to work, I had to work. I was feeling like, well, if I just go back to what I was doing before, it's going to be limited to that. In other words, I'm going to go run around all over the world, try to get this business back. And then I'm going to make the same money I made that year before, if that, right? And I'm just going to do the same thing. And I felt I wanted to do something different because the world was different. COVID changed everybody, not just because we couldn't be out with one another or because it was very traumatic and we lost people. We were changed because it just interrupted every pattern that we had. And when you interrupt patterns, that's when you start to think creatively. So I don't think that we could have even gone back to what we were doing if we wanted to.
Amazing. You openly talk about dealing with stress and anxiety and sleepiness. What helped you start the journey of inner work?
Well, I was studying peak performance, which wasn't about meditating or any of that. I had never done any really internal exploration, and I took this course that was very cool called Zero to Dangerous, which was about peak performance. And in it, they had a module on meditation. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'll finally just try meditation. And I tried it, and it was a little bit weird, and, I couldn't sit still because even to meditate for a few minutes, I had to calm my mind down, and that it just didn't work. I would have an idea, I would get up and write something down. It was really hard, but I had a guest on my Truth Tastes Funny podcast, and his name is Stephen Dobos, and he runs something called the Silva method in Canada. It's all over the world, but he runs it in Canada. And he invited me to come to a meditation immersion. And it was a 4-day immersion. And I really all of a sudden understood, the benefit of meditation and inner work. And that ended up being a way to alleviate stress. And it's not easy to alleviate stress, but I think part of it is you don't ignore it or distract yourself. Like that's what I used to do. I used to say, "Oh, well, I'll go watch a movie or I'll go read a book or I'll go run around the It's that was just a distraction. I think what meditation does is you kind of settle into it a little bit and you're like, "Okay, I want to feel better, but I have to go through this, not around it."
Wow, amazing. Wow, not distraction, but you have to go through it and yeah, sit with it
Yeah.
until everything actually gets to calm down. Yeah, thank you for that. So you describe your philosophy as alchemizing pain into good. What personal experience most shape that mindset?
Well, I think that you know, pain is an emotion that you are gonna feel one way or another. You can't, like we were just saying, you can't escape it. So the question is, what do you use it for? Um, you know, the truth is that, let's say we're feeling bad. Once we process it, what do we do with it? Do we learn something from it? Do we learn how to use it? And so we have to set our goals with all the tools we have. And some of the tools are, like we talked about, the things we do well. Other tools are, we have a computer or a car or something like that. Another tool is the pain that we went through. What did we learn from it? So knowledge is another tool, and it comes from the good and bad stuff. So I think if you alchemize the negative experiences and the painful experiences into something, beautiful, it's like art. It's like how you make art. You make art from raw materials that are probably not that attractive. Metal, for example, doesn't look that great when it's a wheel of a car, but if somebody melts it down and they shape it into a beautiful statue, that's they're taking almost that pain or that ugliness, and they're putting it into beauty.
Amazing, amazing. Taking pain from the cool aspect of it, turn it into good, and yeah, it's. Well, I say it's a very painful experience anyway. But at the end of it, is the fact that you could actually make something real out of it, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
really amazing seeing it from that particular different perspective. Because just seeing it from that philosophy that you make reference of, instinct one with hope when pain actually come into being that that despite this pain is going on, but it's going to bet something better, something lovely, something good, and something, yeah, that you're going to look back and say, it was really amazing passing through that pain to become this I
Yeah.
am now.
Yeah, and you couldn't have done it without it.
Yeah, so
You
true.
couldn't be the person you are without the things that you suffered.
Yeah, amazing. So many entrepreneurs struggle with imposter street or syndrome. How did you help people turn their fear into part of their authentic brand?
Well, I think imposter syndrome, if you think about what it means that they feel like they're pretending to be something that they're not. The fact is, they are in a way pretending to be something they're not, because they're not comfortable with themselves. So when they go to speak and people are listening and they're treating them, well, and they're paying them to do this work and to speak, and or whatever it might be, they're paying them to write a book, or they're paying them for their services. They feel like they don't deserve it. But who they really are does deserve it. So they have to know themselves better. They have to do some of that inner work and exploration to know themselves better. And so, what I try to tell myself if I start to feel imposter syndrome is, you know what? You're not being who you really are. The imposter is that you're pretending to be someone who doesn't deserve this. You're pretending to be someone who doesn't know what these people think you know. They actually are seeing you for who you are. So be that.
That's amazing. Thanks for that particular advice. So you call yourself more like a holistic or brand therapist. What does it really means in practical terms for a person trying to build or rebuild their identity?
Well, if you're building it holistic, I use the word holistic because I think that everything about who we are makes up our persona and our personal brand. So in other words, if we like I mentioned gardening, if we love gardening, we love flowers, that's part of our personality. Somehow that's going to be part of our brand. These things, if we love animals, whatever it may be, things that don't seem to have anything to do with work, but shape who we are. I had a client who was a neurosurgeon, but also a orchestra conductor. And he wouldn't tell anybody about the orchestra conducting. And I said to him, why would you keep that a secret? That's like so unique. Even
Yeah,
though being a neurosurgeon and having new techniques and as a speaker and an author are important, but people need to know that you're an artist as well. You're an artist in science and an artist in music, and that is the secret for him. And so I think we have to, and whether we're rebranding or just or branding, ourselves, we have to get in touch with those things that are really intrinsic to who we are. And I think that's very therapeutic because for this guy, it was a relief to be able to say, you
Yeah.
know, hey, I'm going on tour with this Philharmonic, so I won't be doing this science thing for 3 months or whatever it is, as opposed to just not talk about it
Yeah.
because he thinks that people don't want to hear it. And one of the things that I think we hear too often and listen to too often is nobody cares. You ever had that? Like, have been told that people say,
Yeah.
"Nobody cares
Yes.
about you. They care about the problem you solve." And I'm like, "Yeah, they do care about the problem you solve, but you're solving the problem, and they wanna know why you're the person to solve their problem.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell them, then you're no different from anybody else who solves a problem." So, it's yes, it's about your client or about your patient or about your audience, but they need to know who you are first also because
Yeah.
they want to trust you.
Yeah, amazing. I think when you just brought this up, I think it just speaks volumes too. Definitely, people do business with those who they trust, and seeing you more like doing some different things that might not be directly related to that particular field just shows that you are humans, not a robot, who is actually more like just tailored to a particular task, particular demand most times. So seeing you doing most different things will actually more like speak volumes to wow, that means apart from this, it does this so very well, which is going to create another level of deep connection and yeah, level of trust too. And the fact that give them permission to even just be themselves too, compared to
Yeah.
just more like looking at that particular skill set.
Yeah, and it's easier to just be yourself,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, thank you. So spiritual and purpose-driven entrepreneurs often feel misunderstood. What is the biggest branding mistake they make?
Well, I think that, one mistake that they make is that they think that they have to have an emphasis on the purpose that they're serving. In other words, if they're purpose driven, that typically means that's why they're doing what they're doing. But that doesn't mean that the product they sell has to only serve that purpose. In other words, they're very clear they want to help a certain segment of the population. Let's say that their purpose is clean water. But everybody else's purpose is not necessarily clean water for the communities they're serving. The product, let's say the product that they make or that they sell is, some kind of water that's, the spring water or something like that. The audience cares about first and foremost what they're buying or the service or product they're buying. But your purpose is like alongside it. So I think one mistake they make is they don't know which to put first. They think that people will buy it because they're helping other people, but we have to lead with the product and the audience relationship first. Then the fact that we have this other purpose and we're doing all of these good things are natural and important. But I think the product has to come first. Has to be a great product. Anytime you're selling anything, and if you're the product, same holds true, has to be the best it can possibly be. Then the strategy behind why you did it and
Mm,
why you're doing it, that's part of your story.
amazing. Thanks for this lovely advice. So you encourage people to know themselves before they brand themselves. What is one question every entrepreneur should ask before brand?
I would say that an entrepreneur should ask themselves, are you crazy? because because other people are going to ask that. If we're entrepreneurs, we know it, that a lot of times what we're doing sounds crazy or what we're doing sounds nuts. And we have to be the first ones testing our resolve and
Yeah.
testing our belief. It sounds funny, but in seriousness, we have to ask ourselves, is this what we really want? Are we convinced that this is really going to work or that we really have to do this? And if we ask ourselves that question, we'll find ourselves knowing ourselves a little better because it's possible that we have ignored certain things because we don't want to hear no. We don't want to be dissuaded. So, sometimes we'll ask people for advice who are only going to say, yes, yes, that's very, and they're going to just agree with us. We have to ask ourselves, are you crazy? Are you going to really do this? And when we say to ourselves, you know what? Yeah, yeah, I'm going to do it. Then we know ourselves a little better. Now we can shape our message a little more confidently.
Wow, amazing. I mean, I think when you just said that, it just dawned on me that that was the same process I actually more like went through. I remember when I actually just nearly getting out from
Yeah.
college, I do more like an industrial cleaning. Some friends of mine were saying, "Guy, are you crazy? You mean you you unashamedly you talk about cleaning spaces and doing a whole lot of stuff without shame?" In my mind, I was like, why should I be ashamed? It pays my bill, and what I'm getting from it's a whole lot compared to compared
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
so what I mean is, so why me I was just saying it to myself, I'm like, I think I'm not crazy actually because it's paying the bill, and I'm seeing
That's
I'm
right.
comfort in doing it. I love it, and I love serving my client. And at the end of the day, it's I think just asking myself this question make me feel more like confidence in myself. Even going for an event and saying that yes, I does this, and this is what I does.
Yeah. Yeah, and the confidence comes from asking the question because other
Yeah,
people asking us doesn't really matter, especially
yeah,
with entrepreneurial people and innovative people. We're not going to listen to other people anyway, but we will listen to the logic of our own mind. And if we ask ourselves those questions and we say, well, does it really make sense? And you come to the conclusion, yeah, it does, then you feel more confident.
yeah. So true. Thanks for that. So your podcast, Truth Taste Funny, explore thriving in chaotic world. How does hormones allow people to tell the truth more boldly?
Well, I named the podcast Truth Tastes Funny because it's sometimes real life is a little weird. And when you say like this tastes funny, right? It's like truth is like that. Real life is a little weird. And we have to sometimes confront that. But that humor helps the medicine go down in a way. The humor helps us deal with very hard things. If we can laugh at things, laugh at ourselves, laugh in the face of reality, as I say, we're better equipped to deal with it head on, and then we can survive the chaos. The chaos that goes on in the world now, a lot of it we wouldn't even believe it's so crazy. But by confronting it and having a sense of humor about it, we manage to keep our sanity and deal with the chaos.
Wow, amazing. I think it's just the fact that actually more like having more like a positive outlook of things, even when yeah, it's painful, it's a whole lot to
Yeah.
bear, but just making jest of it in terms of being humor about it, and it allows us to easily just being able to kind of accommodate it and being able to face it head front without actually more like feeling much of the pain, being that we have laughed over it and now I've come to accept it that yeah, this is what I need to go through, and so be it. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have lived a life filled with unexpected twists. What is the strangest and funniest moment that ended up being a branding lesson for you?
Well, the strongest moment was I was invited to speak at a conference. And because I was a stand-up comedian, the night before the opening night of the conference, they hired me to do stand-up comedy. And I thought it was a great opportunity because I was getting paid to do stand-up comedy, but I was also speaking the next day, which I wasn't getting paid for. But what it did was when I did stand-up comedy, all anybody remembered was that I was funny. And when it was time for me to do my presentation, which was not funny, the person introduced me and said how funny I was, and this is gonna be so funny, and you're gonna laugh so hard, and he's so funny, and here he is talking about branding. And I learned that, I needed to choose. I couldn't be both people anymore. And that's what a lot of my clients go through. They're known for one thing,
Yeah.
they're known for this or they're known for that. Now they wanna branch out, they wanna change, they wanna do something else. So I realized I had to choose, and when I chose really branding and the brand building and personal brand building and all of that. And when I chose that, everything became a lot easier. I was still funny. I could give a talk that's funny, but I don't have to give a stand-up comedy talk, you know? It's a talk. It's funny, but it's
Hmm.
not it's also about my area of expertise.
Wow, this is really, really amazing. The fact that over time, what power comes to know you they sadly expect more from it from that particular end, other than just coming up with the nuance, yeah, that they don't even know much about.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, for someone listening today who feels stuck, confused, or unable to express who they are, what is the first step they can take to begin aligning their life?
Well, as I mentioned, the product is important. So, what you are really the problem you're really solving is going to be the key to your brand. And just as you look at the things you're good at and see how best to use your superpowers, you know, really analyze your superpower. Don't worry about what other people will think because the thing that is like I used to think my superpower was being funny. It wasn't. It was listening. It was that I could listen to other people and hear stuff. And yeah, I could interpret what I heard and make it funny, or I could interpret what I heard as a really meaningful strategy for someone. But until I looked at the superpowers and said, what am I really doing here? What is the purpose of it? What is the reason for it? That this is useful? Why is this valuable? When you ask yourself those questions, your natural personality will be part of it, but it'll also be rooted in what you can sell and what the market needs.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Raj. So, Raj, how can my audience connect with you? How can they get to know more about you? And where is the best platform to do this?
The best place for them to find me is yesbrandbuilders.com, and that's my website. It has my shows on there, my book, my story, and some of the stuff that I've done with my clients. And so yesbrandbuilders.com is the best place to check us out. We also have a Yes Brand Builders YouTube page and yeah, invite people to check us out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Raj. Thank you for sharing your journey with us with such honesty, humor, and depth. Your story reminds us that reinvention isn't a single moment, it's a lifelong process of knowing yourself, telling the truth, and letting your experience become your strength. To everyone listening, if you want to go deeper, you could actually more like go to the Yes brand, check them on YouTube, check them all their books and everything is going to be on the show notes for you to connect with them or to connect with him. Until next time, this is the Aro Benaiah Show, where real people build real stories. And once again, it's really a pleasure having you on the show. Hedge.
Thank you so much, Arrow. Great to be here with you.